This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome everybody to the Healthy Self Podcast. This is your host of the day, Regan Archibald, and I am really excited to be here with everyone this morning. It is a beautiful morning in St. George, Utah, and with me today, as the norm, we got the founder of Go Wellness and East West Health, a practitioner, an acupuncturist, functional medicine provider, and peptide expert, Regan Archibald. Regan, how's it going?
Oh, great. Beautiful morning.
Beautiful morning in Midway, Utah. Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Fall is a beautiful thing.
It really is. Well, let's talk about, we're on this longevity quest, and that's what we're covering in our hacks. And so for those of you who are in there, I really appreciate you guys being part of our community and for listening to the show. The show is growing. We're having thousands of people listen to every single episode, which is really exciting. And so we really want to just express our appreciation to you guys all over the world. You know, we have people in Bangladesh, we have people in New Zealand, Australia, a lot of people in Europe and England. We have people who have reached out to me on WhatsApp from Spain, which is really cool. So just all these cool connections that we have all throughout the world. And so our goal here at Your Healthy Self is to give you some tools to optimize your health and your healing potential. And so let's jump in. Today is one of the most important things you can focus on, which is your growth hormone. So there's a study on longevity that was published at the end of 2019, and it's an interesting study. And so what that is, it showed that just by using 3 substances, they took 9, this was phase 1 clinical trial. So it's human trial, but they took 9 healthy men, ages of 50 to 65, and they put them on 3 things. Actually, it was 5 things, but vitamin D3 and zinc are a couple of the things. But then they put them on growth hormone, human growth hormone. So they did, hormone injections there, and then they put them on DHEA, and they put them on metformin. Because by using endogenous growth hormone alone, if you're just putting that hormone in your body, one of the things that can happen is you can have insulin resistance or glucose destabilization, which is not a good thing. And so they said, well, let's put these individuals on metformin. And the overall goal, David Horowitz was the author of this study, and just a genius of a scientist who studies longevity, and he's got the Horowitz clocks, and he's the scientist that discovered that there's a methylation, a DNA methylation pathway that is expressed that shows you the epigenetic factors of humans. So it's actually a more in-depth look at aging and longevity than just a telomere test is, because telomeres are just those shoestrings at the end of the DNA that keep your DNA quiet or replicating appropriately. And so these clocks that he looked at, he tested the methylation pathways, and there's something like 800,000. But he was able to identify just a few hundred of these pathways, and through his research grant, he's able to test each of these methylation pathways for a couple $100. But we also have a longevity partner in Ryan Smith. And Kate, you remember his test? It's True Age. I don't know if you can find that link, Ryan Smith's company there, but it's the same technology now.
Nice. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll post it, but that test is really, really intriguing. So yeah, there's some really cool stuff coming out on longevity and being able to actually see like what your biological age is versus your numbered age, because
yep.
age is just a number, right?
Just a number. And so what they found just by putting these 9 individuals on these 3 substances is that they had a 2.5-year decline in their aging in just 12 months. And so that's substantial. I've shared the experience that Dan Sullivan had. We had him on peptides. We also did the StemVive treatments on him and maximized his stem cells. And what happened to his biological age is he was struggling. He could not, no matter what he could do, his chronological age was the same as his biological age, according to the testing. And then after he came and got treatments, this was in 2019, he retested after 6 months, and his biological age dropped almost 10 years younger than his chronological age. So it all kicked in. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, are ways that you can actually maximize your potential, but not with growth hormone and not with metformin. Those are a couple of things that, metformin, yes, there's some cool things in our society, the biohacking world, longevity world, that say metformin might help with life extension, but it comes with nausea and side effects that we don't like. And so we'll talk about some of these other peptides that maximize that pathway. And one of the herbs that we talk about all the time is berberine. And so berberine, it works on that AMP kinase pathway the same way that metformin does. And basically it scrubs your mitochondria clean. So just use some berberine. It's called huanglian or gentiana in Chinese medicine. It's a yellow plant. It's super bitter, and but one of my favorites. And we have it in Energy Multiplier is primarily berberine, so you can snag that. Oh, cool. So Cameron posted some of our top states. You want to talk about that, Cade?
Yeah, and I also, it's True Diagnostics, isn't that the test?
Oh, True Diagnostics. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to post that if anyone's interested in getting that test. Let's see, I guess it has to be done through a provider, but it's pretty great. I think we got a few providers on here, so if any of the providers out there, you can message me individually, and I'll send you the link so you could actually get an account set up and learn a little bit more about them. But yeah, really cool stuff. Let's talk about that. So Cameron just posted where our top states were, or our top countries. Yeah, so we have U.S., India, Germany, Australia, and then Spain is 5th.
Wow,
that's really. I know we got a New Zealand listener. They've been messaging me back and forth. So I really love being able to just, it's awesome having a community that connects from all across the world. It's cool what technology can bring.
So cool.
And it can also bring longevity, which is our topic today, right?
Yes, I love it. So these are some interesting things, right? Like, I mean, if we can help worldwide, there's so many relationships that can be created that keep life fascinating. And so one of the reasons we age is, we run out of relationships. We think, we just have to hang out with people who are our own age. We all need to hang out with people who are younger than us. They remind us that, hey, life's pretty cool. And then we have a really cool neighbors here, and they're in their late 60s, early 70s, and they act like they're in their 20s. I mean, they're really fun. So no matter what age someone is from a chronological perspective, doesn't matter. It's the biological, and that all starts with mindset. But the main hormone, and the primary one we're going to be focused on today, is going to be growth hormone, because of its unique properties, and we'll talk about that. But one of the things that happens as we age is growth hormone declines, and so our body stops producing it. Our body maximizes production of growth hormone in our 20s, and by the time we're in our late 20s, early 30s, our growth hormone levels start to decline by about 10% in our 30s, and then another 10% in our 40s. But then we have this precipitous drop in our 50s. And by the time we're in our 50s, the majority of us have a 50% decline in growth hormone. And then by the time we're in our 60s, you've got the 70% decline. And, by the time we're in our 80s, we just have a tiny bit of this left. And one of the problems is just by using growth hormone that is, from a hormonal synthetically derived source, is one of the problems you're going to have is you can have organ failure, you can have an enlarged heart, you can have an enlarged kidneys, liver. It puts a lot of burden on the body, the long-term use of growth hormone, and that's where you see some of the bodybuilders have issues. You'll have tendons and ligament damage. It puts too much pressure on the body. I just read an article about the white stripping in chickens that are given growth hormone. They're forced to grow too fast, and this is one of the reasons we say do not eat the industrial raised chickens, because that growth hormone, what they're finding is it lays down these tendons and fibrous tissues instead of protein structures and muscle, because the chickens just can't grow that fast. And so, but a small dose of growth hormone, what they found is for long term, very safe, even in the use of kids who are not thriving. They tend to actually do really well throughout their adult life, even if they're on growth hormone as a kid. So there's it's all in the dose, the dose is where it's really important. But with peptides now, we don't have to use growth hormone itself. And this is where we can just use peptides to remind the hypothalamus and pituitary how to produce growth hormone again. So Kate, it's kind of like, instead of giving the body what it needs, it's like retraining the body on how to produce growth hormone. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's a beautiful thing when you can train the body to do something it's supposed to, as opposed to, with most your hormone therapies and things like that, is you're replacing, what your body's naturally producing and just artificially adding to it. And so I think, you look at how your body functions, most people that end up getting on specific hormones is their body's ability to create that hormone depletes, because it's your body's signaling, hey, do less of this hormone production, because you got plenty in your system, as opposed to when you have mechanisms that can actually teach and open up pathways to create more. So that's awesome, because it creates a natural response as opposed to an artificial response. That I think we've all seen things where if you take steroid use and long-term testosterone use, it has some negative side effects. Where initially it's like, oh, I feel amazing and feel great, but you use those things, your body gets adapted to it and used to it. Whereas some of these peptides is just so exciting, because it does exactly what you're saying, where it helps open up pathways to just increase those naturally rather than artificially. So that was a long answer.
No, your answer was dead on. In my opinion, but because if you look at what growth hormone does, it helps with bone density, it helps with hair, it helps with sexual function, mood, memory, glucose metabolism, exercise capacity, everything. Good for the heart, good for the nerves. It helps with your stem cells. It's good for endurance. There's literally, it's one of the most important hormones in the body, and it's our main fat burning hormone too. So it's just a key component. And so one of the peptides that I'm going to share with you guys today is called Tesamorelin or Tesamorelin, however you want to pronounce it. And Tesamorelin has been around for over a decade. And what researchers primarily were looking at is the use of growth hormone with patients who have HIV, and specifically who had dystrophy. And so the initial product that the pharmaceutical companies made is they patented this peptide in a pharmaceutical called Agrifta. And Tesamorelin is 44 amino acid chains. but it's one of the most effective growth hormone releasing hormone peptides on the market. And so it's been shown to improve IGF-1 levels by an average of 181 micrograms per liter. So that's a potent boost in IGF-1, because the IGF-1 levels, for those of you who are not aware of IGF-1, it actually does the work for growth hormone. And so you have 600 times more IGF-1 receptors in your body than you do for insulin, which makes IGF-1 just a critical component. Your skeletal muscle system, if you have adequate levels of IGF-1, your skeletal muscles, that's the biggest organ in your body by density. And that's also where we become insulin resistant. And by the time you get insulin resistant, that's where you get the aging factor, and inflammaging is what it's called. And so by keeping your insulin resistance down, you keep your insulin stable and quiet, and then your inflammation drops. So you have great C-reactive protein levels, homocysteine levels. All these things are really critical. But Tesamorelin, what they found is it decreases visceral fat. So visceral fat's that fat around the organs that is really damaging to our body. It helps stabilize cholesterol, and I'll share with you some of the results of this study. It decreases the C-reactive protein, decreases heart disease, and it's also shown to have some of the best improvements from a functional medical perspective. We want to see objective data that shows that your labs are improving. And many of you have done, multiple labs with us, with myself or our doctors, and you've seen your labs improve. And that's one of the things we're looking for. So here's I'll show you a quick graph with triglycerides, for example. And let me share my screen here. But the change in cholesterol or in triglycerides is actually pretty powerful, because they just looked at it over the course of 52 weeks, and you can see from the placebo group there's a massive change in the triglycerides. And so as our triglycerides increase in our body, a lot of us think, man, I got to get rid of fats in order to correct triglycerides, because Kate, that's kind of been the theme for the last 50 years. Is it's cholesterol, and it's high cholesterol, high triglycerides is because you eat fat. Actually, what have we discovered about that hypothesis?
Yeah, that hypothesis was deemed incorrect. It's primarily inflammation, so that can be caused by more sugar, processed foods. Some of your trans fatty acids, those can be pretty toxic. So that was, as well as like thyroid problems, elevate cholesterol and cause cholesterol problems, because the binding agent on the cell can't uses the thyroid hormone to actually absorb it. So that's right. More elevated cholesterol levels in the blood.
Yeah, so this is really important, because your cholesterol, your triglycerides, what happens is your triglycerides just get converted, sugars get converted into triglycerides, and then they get stored in your liver as fat, and so you get fatty liver disease. So you can see the change in triglycerides, the placebo model. You can see where they're at in 26 weeks. Their cholesterol levels or their triglyceride levels are very high. Whereas the group on Tesamorelin, it's about 70% less than the placebo group. And then after 52 weeks, the triglycerides just kept increasing, and the placebo group actually was normal after 52 weeks. So pretty impressive Tesamorelin, and long-term use in these clinical trials showed to be very effective. Tesamorelin, they found it helped with endurance, cardiovascular capacity, cognition, memory, mood, sexual function, immune function, bone density, energy, and bone density. Let's stop there real quick, because that's an important one. And if you guys look at your phosphorus levels, your calcium, all the electrolytes, I see as my patients age, I start seeing markers of aging that shows up in the mineral utilization in the body. And then when you have bone density issues, it's problematic, because you can take a fall And it's not just a fall where you catch yourself and you have a bruise on your muscle. You can actually have full-on breaks and fractures that may or may not heal. And this is why, if you fall from having a hip fracture in your 80s, your chances of having a full recovery are very minimal. So this is once again why priming the growth hormone and keeping your body's youth and vitality hormones healthy can improve everything. It improves energy, exercise capacity, glucose utilization, recovery, wound healing, heart protection. It stops the telomere shortening. And once again, remember on the telomeres, it's like the shoelace, the little buttons on the end of your shoelaces that keep them tight. That's what our DNA have that helps better DNA expression. So if you stop the shortening, that means you've stopped aging. It activates stem cells, and then it helps in neuronal repair. So nerve damage. So tesamorelin increases muscle mass, decreases body fat. You can see this patient here who used tesamorelin for 6 months, got himself ready for a fitness competition. Amazing. And then the other thing that you can use with tesamorelin, many of you are familiar with our sarcotropin IPA formula. Sarcotropin IPA is actually, once again, it's a medical-based food that went through the clinical trials and was shown to be very effective for sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass. But it did it by working on the growth hormone pathways and caused an increase in IGF-1 by 16% after 90 days. And so tesamorelin is just where you level up about three notches. It's about 3 times as powerful, but you do want to use ipamorelin on it because it may increase hunger. Unless you do need to gain weight, which many of you do, then tesamorelin is a great one where you can put on some weight, but it's healthy weight. It's not just putting on fat and crappy weight. So the reason we use ipamorelin with this is because that's a somatostatin inhibitor. And somatostatin is that main hormone that blocks our body from, the release of growth hormone. And so then this is where, and especially in the studies that they use this on with the HIV patients, they found that with the lipodystrophy, that accumulation of abdominal fat, specifically around the liver, they found that when somatostatin was up, then they had an increase of lipodystrophy. And so just by using a somatostatin inhibitor, that helped improve everything with these patients who are on the tesamorelin. So it's pretty exciting peptide. I mean, it's a really exciting one because, if you look at the clinical trials, you'll see there's, it increases your natural production of human growth hormone. So once again, if you're using human growth hormone, it's kind of like I use the analogy of when you clean your kid's room for them versus training them on how to clean their own room. It's painful teaching kids how to clean their room, isn't it, kid? I mean, your kids are younger, but
no, I'm in the thick of it. This morning I had to get after Abby just to pick up her clothes, and shoes are all over the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going, how many times do we have to talk about this, right?
Yes.
So it's so much easier to just go in as a parent and just clean it for them, but we know it's not really good for them and it's not good for us.
Yeah. That is true.
Yeah, that's similar.
That hits home.
That does hit home. That's similar to in our body. It's like, well, we don't want to override your body's system. I think medicine for almost 140 years, since about, 110 years, since about 1910, when the Rockefellers really tried to push chemicals and override the body system. They really succeeded in the 40s, and so unfortunately now we're kind of undoing a lot of the problems with medicine in and of itself, which is let's override all the systems and let's, just use hormones to, just take over the body, which hormones can be so important. And there's certain hormones that have, there's a varying degree here, but when you're using these peptides, The peptides are just retraining your body, just reminding your body, hey, clean your room. You do the injection, clean your room, do the injection, clean your room. It's like just giving your body a little reminder so it doesn't get those receptors in your hypothalamus and pituitary, don't get overstimulated and lose their effectiveness. So that's what can happen. So tesamorelin is great. It can increase your natural productions of HGH. It helps increase IGF-1 without altering blood sugar. Once again, when you're using exogenous hormones, you have blood sugar dysregulation. They didn't find that in the studies with these peptides. So that's a bonus. They found it reduced triglycerides. It helped to reduce visceral adipose tissue. It reduced carotid intima media size. So that's the marker for coronary heart disease. So that's where they said, wow, it actually improves that. It improved cognition in patients over the age of 60. And I'll show you some of those studies on it. And then in the clinical trials, it's shown that tesamorelin significantly reduces abdominal fat with fewer side effects than human growth hormone. Although abdominal fat may return after the tesamorelin was discontinued, depending on the individual. Now, these are individuals who had HIV. So if you don't have HIV, we see as long as you keep the lifestyle up, your body fat's not going to return. Now, tesamorelin has been shown to reduce lipodystrophy in HIV-infected individuals, as well as reducing abdominal fat in non-HIV infected individuals. And just by reducing abdominal fat, you realize that you can decrease your body's chances of heart disease substantially. And even if for those of you who have pain in your knees or any arthritis, just by taking, if you think about it, 1 pound of fat is equivalent to 5 pounds on your knees. And so just by getting rid of 5 pounds, you take 25 pounds of pressure off your knees. That's substantial. So here's tesamorelin. We did a training. We had a medical roundtable yesterday with all of our providers, which was really fun. And, we talked about liver fibrosis because we're seeing a lot of our patients come in with fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And so we're talking about what are some treatments that are available that are very effective for reversing, fatty liver disease and fibrosis of the liver. And here's where you can see in this, in these clinical trials with Agrifta, about over a decade ago, so it was in 2010, they found that the fibrosis of the liver in the placebo group was almost 40%. This was the group that did not receive the tesamorelin peptide amino acid chains, whereas the group that received the tesamorelin was down to 10%. And these are in HIV-infected individuals. So they found that this was very positive. It reduced adiposity substantially. And so that's one of the reasons they approved it, because it was 4 times more effective in reducing this fat deposits in the liver than all other available therapies combined. Pretty cool, huh, kid?
Really cool.
Yeah, here's another study where they found that it increased growth hormone releasing peptide. It improved the IGF-1 levels by 117%. It reduced the percentage of body fat by 7.4%. It increased fasting insulin levels within normal range by 35%. So that's phenomenal. This is in patients with mild cognitive impairment. This was the results of Neurology of 2012. It was published in the Journal of Neurology. Adverse events were mild and treated. 68% very mild adverse events, mostly flushing. 36% of those had adverse events in the placebo group. This was 20 weeks on the treatment. So let's show what they found. So this is for mild cognitive impairment. So that's one of the biggest things that you'll see as your growth hormone levels start to drop. You'll start to see that you don't quite have the cognitive capabilities that you once had. And so you can see in the placebo group doing an executive functional composite. You can see that in the placebo group, the score is about 3 times less than it is in the growth hormone groups. In both of these with mild cognitive impairment. You look at the verbal memory composite, you see in the placebo group versus normal. Once again, the group who received the Tesamorelin had about a 2-time improvement, maybe a 25% improvement is more accurate in the verbal memory composite. And so these are some interesting things that can happen as we age. And so once again, here's some of the references on this study. But Kate, Tesamorelin, pretty phenomenal. We've seen interesting things, especially with drinkers. So for those of you who are like, I got to get my son off alcohol, or my daughter, or my husband, or my wife, or whatever it may be, or I got to get myself off of it. Tesamorelin has been phenomenal because the tolerance for alcohol and your taste for it almost goes away entirely. So that's another. I have not seen studies on that. This is more my clinical observation, but it's been a very, very powerful peptide for those of you who want to get rid of the booze, which is highly recommended.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that. I think you were talking about Celank is great for addiction, right? Is that the other one?
Celank is awesome for addiction, and Celank works more as anxiolytic. So that's more for the addictions where you get the anxiety and you need something like alcohol or food to combat it. That's kind of one of the ways you can do it is with the Tesamorelin.
Nice. And so Tesamorelin's more the craving or the feel for it. The Celank's more the anxiety side. Like if it's just like an anxious habit, like smoking, got to have that motion or yeah. Interesting. That's so cool how they can work.
Yeah, if you think Tesamorelin's working primarily on the liver. So if you have liver issues, I mean, it's just phenomenal for cleaning that up, those pathways. And so yeah, the lactase dehydrogenase is one of the markers that we see improved, as well as your ADL levels. So yeah, it's something that it certainly is awesome. So Tesamorelin. Any questions on that before we shift gears just a little bit? Oh,
Diane just sent a question. Is Celank a supplement or a peptide? It is a peptide. And typically it's, is it nasal? Is that the only form, or is there, I know it's the main form. I don't know if there's any other options.
No, actually in their clinical trials, this was, it's a peptide that comes out of Russia, and they found that it actually is more available nasally through the pathways, the olfactory nerves, than it is sub-Q or oral. So yeah, Celank is always a spray, as is C-Max. And so it's crazy. It's something like 100 times more potent when used as a nasal spray.
Nice.
So there's a few of those. So yeah, but Celank is awesome. Very calming. It's actually antimicrobial too. So it functions as an antimicrobial peptide. And in some of the early literature, they show that it actually can stop viral replication. So if you're worried about some of the viruses replicating in your nasal cavity, like with COVID, it's a very, very effective one that you can try. I guess I can't say effective but it can help with viral replication. According to some of the literature, the other thing it can do is it can stop with bacterial infections as well. So sinusitis, things like that. So it's kind of an interesting peptide there. So, but yes, Celank is, you want to get it compounded appropriately, or like any of these peptides, you don't want to go to like peptidesworld.com and get for research based only, or only for animals. You may, we just don't know the safety and efficacy and quality of those. But yes, Tesamorelin, as far as improving your physical fitness, feeling your best, looking your best, helping virtually everything in the body. I don't think there's another peptide that has quite the functionality of this. And then if you couple that with epitalin, and then even like some ABP7 to activate the thymus gland, I mean, you're just going to be pretty bulletproof. So awesome.
And then had a question from Bev come in, and is Tesamorelin nasal?
Hey, Bev. Hey, Diane, everybody who's on. But Tesamorelin is an injection.
Yeah, so that's going to be a subcutaneous injection.
Yeah, great for you, though. Okay, so I want to talk about one other, we're talking about, I looked at the two biggest opportunities for performance enhancement, just like really, really maximizing your physical fitness, your mental capabilities, just becoming, a younger version of you. We want you to die young at an old age is our goal. That aligning lifespan with health span is a real key component of the show. And so one of the other peptides we're gonna talk about is one that's very familiar. And Bev, you're going to be excited about this one because you have, if you want to type in your experience being on MOTSc, we'd love to hear it. And I saw Kyle yesterday in the clinic. Your son's awesome. But yeah, anyway, so MOTSc is the other peptide we're going to talk about, and we've covered this on the show before, but I think it's important to revisit it because of its potential in maximizing mitochondria. We finished the mitochondrial summit, and I realized that this mitochondrial genesis is one of the key components that they're looking at. Dr. David Horowitz, when he's looking at all these methylation pathways in the DNA, it's the mitochondrial genesis that really separates the supercentenarians from not. The supercentenarians always test younger than their chronological age, which is kind of interesting. No one who's 110 is testing as a 110-year-old. They're more like 80 or 90 is what he's finding, which is, it's fascinating. So even if you can stop your aging and you become the same chronological age as you are biologically, and even by reversing that 1 to 2 years, they find that if you go on that trend, then you'll be like Dan Sullivan, where suddenly you have a breakthrough and it's something you've been working on for 5 years. Now suddenly you've just erased 10 years off of your biological clock, which is really key. And especially for Dan, because he's got a goal to live to be 122. And if you guys go back, maybe Chanel, you can post some of the shows that we've done with Dan Sullivan on here. But yeah, it'd be interesting to go back and re-listen to those conversations, because he talks about the mindset that's necessary. I'm giving you more of the science and kind of the nerdy details about it, but hopefully you're finding it fascinating, because there's got to be a scientific pathway to get us there. But then it's your mindset. If you don't want to get there, all the science in the world doesn't change anything. It's not going to help you, right?
Yeah. And his main goal is to live through a full century, right?
That's right. Yep.
So he's got to make it through 2100.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I said 122. He's got a goal to live to be 156. He was born in 1924. I was going to say
it's a little longer than that.
I was thinking of the oldest human on record, where we think we have the correct birth certificate or baptismal certificate and death certificate of Jean Clement out of France, 122 and a half. So that's what I was thinking. But Dan Sullivan's 156. So he wants to live to a full century,
he's on track, is he not? Like because his telomeres, like he's gradually been decreasing them every year, meaning his biological age is dropping. He comes to, I don't know if it's Park City or Salt Lake. He comes every kind of 6 months. It's been on a little bit of a hiatus, but
because he lives in Canada, so they won't let him out.
Lockdown in Canada,
America's largest gated community. They're gated in for good. Yeah. So all right. So let's jump in, because these are some of the cool things that you can do, and I'm going to show you ways you can actually express this gene, even if you don't use peptides, which is great. By the way, with growth hormone, the way you can express growth hormone is through these autophagy activities that we challenge you to do in the hack. So fasting, overtime fasting, you'll have a lowering of growth hormone and then a boost of growth hormone when you go to eat. You can get it through exercise, especially high intensity interval training. But MOTSc is no different. And what researchers found in these blue zones, especially in Japan, they found that these supercentenarians expressed the MOTSc gene more so than other people did. And so what MOTSc does is it helps with overall metabolism. It helps your mitochondria combat stress. It helps with the muscle, the skeletal muscle. I'll share some interesting studies on that. It works on the hypothalamus of the brain. So think of the hypothalamus. That's what regulates all the hormones in your body. The hypothalamus, the pituitary, that whole, the hypothalamus is also, listening to all the hormones in the body. It helps with the heart, the liver, and it helps mitigate fat. And it's great for helping with blood sugar dysregulation and diabetes. And so very phenomenal. So if you think of mitochondria, just to go back to what is the mitochondria, that's the engine of your cell. And in your cells, especially the cardiac cells, you can have over 5,000 mitochondria in a single cell. So it's not just one mitochondria, there's lots of engines. And the goal of the mitochondria is to activate more mitochondrial health so that you have connection and communication with the mitochondria. And so one of the things that they found is you can increase the mitochondrial pathway and increase autophagy by expressing the MOTSc gene. And so what researchers discovered is that they could actually create a peptide that would express this gene. And this peptide I'm coming up on next week. I'm on my last bottle of MOTSc on my 90-day trial. And I shared this last night, so I'll be quick. But I did basically, I'm doing a research project on myself where I haven't ridden Puke Hill. Cade, Puke Hill up to the Crest Trail. Monday after work, I went up there and I said, I'm just going to see how quick I can ride up this. Based on last year, last summer, I did it almost every week. I did the Puke Hill and I crushed it going up there. I was on my peptides, primarily the growth hormone releasing peptides. And this year, after doing MOTSc for almost 90 days, I beat my previous record, and I hadn't ridden up Puke Hill all year and haven't really mountain biked as much as I typically have. So I beat my record by almost 3 minutes. Isn't that crazy?
3 minutes? That's impressive.
3 minutes. And just like I got to the top and I was like, I probably could have pushed it a little bit harder. So yeah, anyway, if you know Puke Hill, you guys know you finish at 10,000 feet. It's just straight up for 2,000 feet, no stop. So yeah, it's great. Did we have a question come through, Cade?
No, just... Okay. No, we're good there. We're trying to, on the back end, we're trying to find the show for the Dan Sullivan.
Oh, got it. Oh, thank you.
That, but yeah, Cameron, if you could answer my question there, that would be helpful.
Okay, so MOTSc, if you think about ATP, that's what mitochondria does, is it generates ATP, and that's the energy in your body. But when you have a weakening of ATP, you have a backup generator in your cells called AMPK. And AMPK enhances muscles to uptake substrates and upregulates beta oxidation. It's your fat-burning hormone. It also helps you utilize sugar as an energy source. So in insulin resistance, you don't need the transportation. You don't need glucose to be in the presence of insulin to utilize it, which is why it works so well with diabetes. And so what they found is in obese kids who had diabetes, they were diabetic and they're also obese. They found that by using this dose of MOTSc for 4 weeks, they helped these kids get into a deeper metabolic state and actually help them reverse, in some cases, their diabetes. Studies also show that by using MOTSc, you lower your ROS, your reactive oxygen species. And so then you get better cell-to-cell communication. Even fasting, if you guys fast, you're going to lower your endogenous expression of MOTSc. But then once you come back and eat, then you activate it. So once again, fasting is really important. And then I'll share with you a study on mice which I think is really impactful. They took these mice that were 12 months old, and these mice were insulin resistant. And they were, they're old mice. At 12 months, it's kind of weird to think, but they're older mice. And just by using MOTSc treatments for 7 days, they put the MOTSc in the water of the mice, and that restored the insulin sensitivity and skeletal muscle as if they were a 3-month-old mouse again. So they became comparable to the young mice. So pretty interesting. If you have a pet mouse, you can feed it MOTSc, and if your mouse gets old, it will get young again, is what we learned. I don't know if anyone of you have pet mice, but it might be important to get one.
Yeah, and then inject them with some MOTSc.
Exactly. Yes. So one of the longevity pathways that you're going to hear a lot about is the Mtor pathway. And so you've got this kind of yin-yang balance that needs to be kept between AMPK and Mtor. And so one of the things that MOTSc does is it helps you process all the proteins and store those proteins and build skeletal muscle and muscle mass. But the other thing it can do is when you have the Mtor pathway, it inhibits the Mtor pathway. So this is where fasting with MOTSc is really important, because then you're going to get greater levels of fat loss, better transportation of sugars to the muscle cell. You'll have a decrease in insulin resistance, more energy, and greater resistance to metabolic stress. It also improves your health and lifespan. And remember, that's one of our goals. And so many of you have questions, well, how do I use it? Because MOTSc is this lyophilized agent, so it comes as a powder with bacteriostatic water. And all you do is you mix it up. And we've actually found that there's a little bit better of a response. Instead of injecting it once per week subcutaneously, we've actually found that if you take that 10 mgs per ml solution, and you just keep it in your fridge, and there's Wells Pharmacy's done some studies on this. They've got some brilliant doctors there, but we're finding that actually just doing these injections, periodically over the course of every other day or even every day, you're going to have a little better improvement in your overall blood sugar levels, and you're going to see just a little better boost in your skeletal muscle and endurance. That's how I've been doing it, and it's been really exciting. So shared that study with you guys. Here's some things you can do on your own. So let's go to saunas. So this will be kind of where we'll wrap things up in just a couple of minutes here. But what you'll find is that just by getting into a sauna and by increasing your exercise level or getting in a sauna, you can cause the expression of the MOTSc gene. And so in one of the studies they looked at, they looked at the transcriptional factor in the gene expression with the MOTSc. And they found that by using either saunas or using exercise, they were actually able to activate that gene. So there you go. And then one of the herbs you can use, and I've mentioned this before as well, is cordyceps. And Cade, cordyceps is found in the Stem Boost formula that we use with the Smart Medicine. And so cordyceps is another way you can express this phenotype. So pretty exciting stuff. So hopefully, just to summarize everything we've covered today is, and Bev has some comments. Yes, go ahead, Cade.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention Bev's comment on MOTSc experience incredible with improved blood sugars, her injections every other day.
Yeah.
And then I just posted the link, so if you guys are want to learn a little bit more, see what the ingredients in Stem Boost is, that is one of my go-tos. Like every morning, I have a little bit of that in my coffee. You can, if you're not a coffee drinker, you can actually make it makes a really nice cold drink, or you can do it in warm water, like almond milk, something like that. It makes a really good, it's golden milk is the flavor. So, and I'm interested. A lot of you are taking these Smart Medicine supplements. If there's something that you're like, hey, I wish you guys had, this type of supplement, let us know. We're open to Smart Medicine is definitely open for feedback on that, because there's some additional stuff that we're exploring there. Nice. So had a question. Dosage and length of use of peptides are determined by my blood results. So that's a question. Did you catch that, Regan?
Yeah. So so I think I got it. So, yes. And peptides, once again, we typically, what we'll do is we'll put you on 3 phases of peptides, and we'll say, here's what you want to do the first 90 days. And then it's more about what your goals are. And so a lot of my patients, they'll come to me and they'll say, well, hey, I really want to get on Tesamorelin, or I want to try MOTSc, and then we'll have a conversation about that. But no, it's in the peptides, the great thing about them is it can be a bit of choose your own adventure, but it is also based on what your labs show, because sometimes we've got patients who we've got to get them on specific peptides just to get their immune system reactivated before we go to the next level. There's a sequence of pathways you want to open up, and most of those pathways can be opened up within about 60 days with the peptides, and then you can start pivoting. So yeah, if any of you have any questions about peptides specifically, you can just email me, Regan@GoWellness.com, and I'm happy to get those questions answered.
Love it. All right. Well, amazing show. Thank you once again, Regan, for the phenomenal content today. So intriguing and interesting. And so we'll be back same time, same place next week. Like I said at the beginning, if you're not a part of our hack community, the Health Accelerator community, get on that. It's AccuEastWest/hack, HAC. So you can join there. Along with that, we have the show sponsored today by thesmartmedicine.com. That's thesmartmedicine.com. Go there for all your supplement needs. And we mentioned today STEM Boost, along with another one of my favorites, Intergenius, is probably one of the best sellers there with increased. It's a nootropic for increased brain function. So we're going to we're getting out of here. You guys have an amazing day, amazing week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Regan.
You got it. See you guys.